To God be the glory. I thought I'd be better. You did this to me 3 years ago. I can tell you, because I speak a lot, they don't get what you just got at all the other churches. Let me just tell you that. I have a handkerchief up here. I've heard the Marine Corps hymn 900 times, and I still can't keep a dry eye. I'm just telling you. So as Keith mentioned, I'll give you just a quick trailer of what's going on with this book. I'll just do it this way. Dr. Lester Hudson, Hutson. Dr. Lester Hudson is a theologian, a scholar, an author. You might not know him unless you were a teacher and been that a long time. He's in his 80s now. Some of you may have heard of the book, A History of Churches. If you're not doing anything for 5 to 7 years, that'll be a good one for you, about that big. A History of the Churches. I see some heads nodding. That's Dr. Hudson, to give you an idea. I happen to know him. And I asked him when the book was published, my book, if he would look at it and tell me what he thought. For the sake of time, what he ended up doing was read the whole thing, and he wrote and published a 2-page review. I'm not going to read all that to you today, but I'm going to give you a couple of snippets. Quote from Dr. Hudson. To say the least, Genesis Matters, are you ready, is the most unconventional, unique commentary on the book of Genesis that I've ever encountered. Brunner uses everyday language that is not at all lofty. Some of it is a bit shocking. At times, it's terse, and he calls you out. This is great. Sometimes his language is crude, and it wouldn't stand muster in an English class. I know there's a compliment in here somewhere. But at the end of the review, he says this. He closes and says, "You will find this book fascinating and well spiced with laughter and tears. It is a highly emotional book that can help anyone, but it's especially suited for the more secular-minded to a materialistic-oriented person who is into self and who doesn't know or doesn't think that he or she needs God." When I was here 3 years ago, you may remember we had the chance to kick off our year of evangelism. Do you remember that in 2020? Any show of hands? Anybody was here? A lot of people. And I made a comment. I said that I know that there's a lot of issues in our country today. I said that. And then I said, I don't have an answer for all that today, but I'm working on it. Genesis Matters is the first attempt. Really, not just to reach you. I expect all of you to get the book. You're in my church. But in all honesty, most of you are not the target. The target is everybody else out there that's not in church today, not here, not anywhere. And to cut to the chase, it's those folks who wonder, A, if there really is a God, and if there is he real? Does he care? And does he matter? That's the book. Thank you. Hopefully God's up to something. The church was supposed to have a whole lot of books here, and after this service, I was going to sign them all and you could buy them. There are no books here. When the church went to the publisher to buy them, they were sold out. So hopefully something's happening. Some of you I know. For those that don't know me, as Keith said, I've been a member of our church, let's just say, a long time. It's interesting, when young pastors introduce me to teach and speak, they go, "This is Michael Brunner. He's our Bible teacher. He's been here, well, he's just been here a really long time." And then they keep going. But early on in my tenure and in my time at this church, Dr. Young would then and now get me to do a number of things. That list is too long to mention here, but basically, with me and Dr. Young, it always comes down to three things. I am told where to go, when I will speak, and what I will say. Notice, I didn't say I was asked where to go, when to speak, and what to say. With Dr. Young, I don't think that's ever occurred. I'm told. But this time, this year, when the phone rang, something different happened. Dr. Young was not on the other end of the line. It was Ben Young. For those that don't know, Dr. Young has 3 boys. Ben is a senior pastor at the Woodway campus. I've known him forever. He was on the phone, and he said, and it went something like this: "Hi, Michael, listen, we know you will be in town for our July the 4th service. And what we need," how did they know? But they knew. "And what we need is for you to speak at our services and give us your reflections on what July 4th means to you as a Marine Corps veteran, an American, as a Christian. Have a great day. God bless, and we'll see you on July the 2nd. I have to share, it was a tender moment. It was really sentimental, because it was at that moment that I realized that after all these years of being told where to go, when to speak, and what to say by Dr. Young, I now would be getting those orders from the offspring. Regardless of where the orders come from, I always have a standard disclaimer when I teach and preach at our services. And here it is. If you today, after this service, are moved, inspired, captivated, motivated, transformed, and your life will never be the same, the church has my permission to give you all of my contact information so that you can call, text, write, and tell me personally how wonderful you thought this was. However, if it goes the other way and you leave here going, "I can't believe they put that guy up there to lead this service," Dr. Ed Young and Ben Young are your points of contact. I had nothing to do with it. I mentioned it a minute ago, and I'll say it again. The topic is our nation's independence. And I have this here. I reserve the right to get emotional. And as Ben said, we want it from your perspective. And I speak as a Marine Corps veteran, but I will also speak for many veterans here today that you honored, and we appreciate that. We have to go back just a bit to get you right with where this started. So I'm 13, 14 years old. Grew up in the hill country, and at a Christian retreat in the middle of nowhere in northeast Texas, an invitation is given at a youth service that night. And a youth pastor calls us out and says, if it's your time to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior and to get right with God, I'm going to give you that chance right now. I felt the tug, and I stood up, and I went forward. And at 13, 14 years of age, I accepted that invitation. And through Jesus Christ, I asked God to come into my life as much as I knew what that meant. What I didn't know is that after that was done, there would be a plan, a direction, a journey, however you want to put it, that was in place for my life. And part of that plan, I had no clue, was that a few years later, I would join the United States Marine Corps. The irony here is that it was never on my list as a young man of what I would do. Never. I never thought about it. There were no Marines in my family. I don't believe I am military-minded. That really is a nice way of putting it. The simple fact is, I didn't really want anything to do at all with the military, much less the United States Marine Corps. If you don't know about the Corps, let me just give it to you this way. In all of our armed forces, the Marine Corps makes up only 14% of our fighting men and women. But understand that we have a very singular focus. We're very small. And that focus is that we are the most combat-oriented force in the world. And in other words, we are here to do one thing. We are led, paid, and trained only one thing, and that's to fight. Period. With that said, Ben Young said, "Why don't you tell them a story?" Marines all have stories. Well, I thought about the story where several years back, I single-handedly defeated all of our country's enemies, both foreign and domestic, in one summer. He said, "No, that's too easy. Give them another one." So I'll give you this one. All true, been chronicled, the whole deal. Training operation, mid-1980s. Dusty desert road, little cube of a building, real small, 2-story, real small. Door blown off, window blown off, nothing. Built with cinder block, just sitting there. Nobody's in that place. Well, but you don't know for sure. Because when you assume things in the military, that can get you killed. So the training operation is this. There's a building. We need to secure the building. There were 5 of us. Here's how you do it. 2 of us will split off, go around the building, and come to the right side of the door. The other 3 of us will stay on point, come up, and position ourselves at the left side of the door. What starts it off is we have a grenade. How it works is pull the pin, throw it through the window, create chaos and diversion on the 2nd floor, immediately go in, secure the 1st floor, and go up and take what's left. Easy peasy. Don't try it at home, but it's easy peasy. The Marine that had the grenade that day was yours truly. I'm in the lead, 2 Marines behind me, 2 Marines on the other side of the door. I look, I say, "We ready? Let's go." Pull the pin, reach back, and proceed to throw the grenade. Now, I'm athletic. I believe I can do a number of things. Any of you could have done this. But you can imagine my surprise when, as I threw the grenade so beautifully, it completely missed the window, hit the wall, and just as beautifully bounced right back in my hand. Some of you know that still small voice at times in your life that's spoken to you, right? The still small voice. The still small voice was there that day with the grenade in my hand. And it said very simply, throw it back now. Second time, just as it went through the window, it blew, went in, completed the operation, the building secure. That night, there was a review done of the operation. And it was determined that if we ever got involved in the securing of a building where a grenade is involved, emphatically, Lieutenant Michael Brunner would not be the one to throw the grenade. There's your Marine Corps story. We're going to keep going. But what I want to tell you is that from the time that I said yes to Jesus and said, God, I want you in my life as much as I know what that means, that plan was put in place. That plan that started at that moment in East Texas, through the rest of my teenage years, through my time in the Marine Corps, but it didn't stop there. I have no doubt, in looking back and in hindsight, that it was God's plan shortly after I left the service to be here in Houston. I have no doubt that it was in God's plan for me to be in the career that I've now been in for 34 years. It was absolutely clear to me that shortly after coming to Houston, that I was supposed to be in this church, and then shortly thereafter become a Bible teacher and a speaker. And trust me when I tell you, it was God's idea to become an author. It was not mine. I do have to tell you, when I got here, just so you know, if you're single, listen to this a minute. I was completely single. Isolated single. Twilight zone single. Beyond single. I defined the word single. Am I getting across to you? And I remember I would say, God, I can very clearly see that your hand's on my life, that things are happening. I don't know the end, but I know that you're moving me in a direction, and I'm just wondering if it could be possible that maybe I could do that and grow in that path and go in that path with a woman. Standard military response from the Almighty. He said, son, let me explain this to you. When I want you to have a wife, I will issue you one. Until then, you stay focused on me, and we'll let that take care of itself. Can't make this up. And a few years later, short years later, I met a beautiful woman at Second Baptist, and we fell in love, and we got married, and we've had 4 kids, and they're all girls, and I appreciate the Marine Corps for a lot of things, but they were ill-equipped to teach me how to deal with 4 girls. The main thing I want you to understand in my little story is that while it's unique to me, that is not unique to how God works. And what I want you to know, if you're kicking the tires, maybe you're a guest, you're a visitor here, and you've wondered where God is in your life, let me just tell you something. When you make a decision to invite Christ into your life and follow his lead, watch this, there will be a plan, a path, and a purpose for your life. There will be a path, a plan, and a purpose for your life. I'm just a poster child representing millions of people that could get up here and say exactly that. There's a verse in the Old Testament that says it best. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future." I take that very literally. So it's July the 4th. Happy Independence Day. So as the Youngs asked me to reflect, I thought about this, and I thought I'd just give it to you full bore. I think I represent a lot of veterans here when I say what I'm going to say. Basically, for us, For me, when we think about July the 4th, I think of it in tandem with the other days that are involved. Specifically, I look at 3 days that I think about when July the 4th comes up, and I want to give those to you. The first one we celebrated last month. It's the month of May, and we call that Memorial Day. Many of you were here for a Memorial Day service. Let me just tell you, that's not my day. That's not any Veterans Day that's here. That's not your day. It's the day that we recognize as a nation those who served our country. And they didn't come home. That's Memorial Day. I remember I was a young buck recruit. Signed up, said, I'm going to be a Marine. They said, great, you'll have a fun time at summer camp. The recruiters call it summer camp. If they called it what it really was, torture, nobody'd ever sign up. 10 weeks of fun in the sun in Quantico, Virginia, if you know where that is. 60 of us started out in week 1. By week 10, 18 of us were left, and the commanding officer got us in our room. There's just a few of us. And he said, men, we're teenagers, early 20s. He said, men, look around. For those of you that stay in any length of time, not all of you are coming home. Frankly, I thought, can't you be a little more positive? He couldn't have been more accurate. I'll reference him here, and I speak, I think, for every veteran that was in a combat MOS. First Lieutenant Chris Toburin, an all-conference linebacker at the University of Kansas, a hometown hero to that state, was a helicopter pilot. He was right here. Went down in a training operation. First Lieutenant Robert Cox, a Texan, one of the finest Marine officers I ever saw, a graduate of Texas A&M University, and a fighter jet went down over the Mediterranean Gulf. I was in his wedding. This stuff is real, and it very much is a boys to men moment, a girls to woman moment. That's Memorial Day. We remember them. The second day is Veterans Day. We hadn't had that one yet. That's in November. That is my day. And that's every Veterans Day that stood up here and veterans that are watching on TV and online. That's our day. And the reason that's our day is because this is the time when the nation formally recognizes those who have served and shows their appreciation. All I want to say about that, and I want you to know this, every time you take a moment to go up to a veteran and say, thank you for your service, just so you know, it means the world to us. It means the world to us. So please keep doing that. And this church does a magnificent job of recognizing all of that. So now that brings us to this one. July the 4th, Independence Day. It's the day where we officially recognize as the time where we no longer were under English rule or anybody's rule. July the 4th, 1776. It was a moment on the world stage where we could say, hello, we are the United States of America. Not the United States of England, not the United States of Europe, not the United States of anybody else. We are the United States of America. A standalone country had never been done. Two points to make, and we're about done. First of all, taken together, when we look at all three of those days, it has to remind us of this, and here's the quote. We paid a heavy price to get our freedom, and we pay a heavy price to keep it. Isn't that something? That about sums it up, doesn't it? We paid a heavy price to get our freedom, and we pay a heavy price to keep it. Make no mistake, Keith mentioned it, but I will affirm it. From 1776 to today, right now, as we sit in a beautiful church in a land where we're free, just so you know, right now, there are servicemen and women whose lives are on the line today. That's point number one. Point number two, I did the math. We're 237 years old come Tuesday. 237 years old. And whatever those may say, bottom line, we are considered the strongest nation on the planet. Just so you know. So I did some research for you. And specifically, I looked at some countries and where they got their start. Russia. The research shows that they were first recognized as a country in 862 AD, over 1,100 years before we were recognized. That's Russia. China. Their recorded history was 4,000 years ago. China. India and Japan, it got fuzzy. They go back so far, way past China, there is debate on exactly when they got started, but it was thousands of years ago. Let me cut to the chase. Whether it's Asia, Africa, Europe, South America, they've all been here centuries before us, hundreds, thousands of years before us. So you may know where I'm going. Why aren't any of them the most powerful nation on the planet? They were here first. I believe I know. Very simply, I believe that God has his hand on this nation. I've felt that for a long time, you bet. I've felt that for a long time, and I'm so glad I have the chance just to express it to you, because I just want you to know that I absolutely believe that God has his hand on this nation. And I want to read you a quote from an archive, and it goes like this. Many in the founding generation, 98% or more of whom were affiliated with Protestant Christianity, regarded the Bible as indispensable to their political experiment in self-government. Let me translate that for you. Our first generation of Americans, our women, our men, the first ones that got here, the first ones that said, we're going to make a go of this. You know what they really wanted? They wanted God in their lives. They wanted his leadership, his guidance, his counsel, his care, his plan, his protection, his providence in their lives. They wanted it, let me tell you, individually, and they wanted it as a nation. And when that happened, look what God did. Look what he did. So, in conclusion, where does that leave us today? Lots gone on between July the 4th of 1776 and today. Lots going on. Some say we've lost our way. Some say that. Some say we've forgotten God and that we've fallen so far, don't know if there's any hope left. And then finally, there's some that would say, forget it. We've gone past the point of no return. I believe I have some good news for you. In the Old Testament, God told his people, and he said it this way, quote, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear them from heaven, I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land." Let me tell you something, friends. As we remember, as we reflect, as we celebrate on our nation's birthday, July the 4th, I can't think of a better day to humble ourselves, pray and seek his face, turn from our wicked ways, and know that God will forgive our sin and heal our land. Not only that, but I have biblical precedent of something else. And don't argue with me because I'm a Bible teacher. I will tell you what else he says. If we as a people really get excited about our faith, we really want to put God first. We really want to get it right. First as people, then as a church, then as a community, a state, a country. God says, not only will I heal our land and forgive our sins, he will build us, grow us, move in us, and watch this, make us better than we ever were before. That's the God that we serve. It's in the Bible. You check it out. So that is what is on the table, ladies and gentlemen. Have a happy 4th of July. Happy birthday. May God bless you and may God bless our country. Thank you for your time.